Welcome to today's episode of the Mint Door podcast. Before we begin, we're excited to introduce you to Refresh, a transformative monthly training program designed specifically for dental professionals facing team conflicts, communication barriers, and burnout. This program is your key to unlocking a purpose-driven, fulfilling life both in and outside of the dental office.
So Refresh offers practical tools and strategies to overcome stress and barriers, helping you tap into your energy and activate your true potential. Our monthly sessions are tailored to guide you in embracing your journey and excelling in all aspects of life.
And there's more. Join our weekly open coaching sessions for deeper insights, peer connections, and expert advice. As life coaches with rich dental backgrounds, we're here to help you discover and confidently use your unique talents every day.
So refresh your catalyst for a transformative journey, professionally and personally.
Awesome. So today we'd like to welcome you to Talk It Out, the podcast that brings you intriguing conversations with fascinating people and insightful discussions on topics that matter to you. You've come to the right place if you're a dental professional seeking knowledge, inspiration, and connection.
In each episode, we dive deep into the subjects that pique your curiosity, introducing you to thought leaders, experts, and trailblazers who have the information you crave. And today's episode is no exception. We're so excited to welcome Dr. Anissa Holmes as our guest today.
Yeah. Dr. Anissa Holmes was awarded Dentistry's top dental coach and has made a name for herself as a leading expert in coaching and presentations. Her exceptional skills have earned numerous invitations to keynote at prominent events like AACD and contribute to dental publications like Dental Economics, and also to present at top dental meetings and societies.
Dr. Holmes is also the founder of DentalFlix, a leading provider of dental education offering a comprehensive library of training courses, videos, and tutorials. With customized learning materials for every role in the practice, DentalFlix is revolutionizing the way dental professionals learn and grow.
So cool. So grab your headphones, get comfortable, and prepare to be captivated by an engaging conversation with Dr. Anissa Holmes that will leave you feeling informed, empowered, and inspired. It's time to talk it out with the Mint Door because knowledge is power, and we believe you deserve both. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome again to another episode of the Mint Door podcast. We are honored beyond belief today to have Dr. Anissa Holmes with us. Anissa, thank you so much for taking some time to spend with us on the Mint Door podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to jump straight in there because I'm excited also to ask you the first question that we've got. And I was wondering if you could give us a behind the scenes glimpse into your daily life and maybe highlight how you switch between all the roles that you have and the responsibilities that go with that.
Yeah, so thank you for asking that question. A lot of times people see what's on the surface, right? And they don't understand like what it actually takes and how you have to take care of yourself, right? Actually, earlier this year, I was working a lot and I kept making excuses for, not going to my yoga class. So I've got this meeting, I've got this Zoom call, right? And so this year I actually decided that I wouldn't start work until 10 a.m. Right? So I literally go to yoga. Why? Because when I tried to do it at 7, I couldn't hold myself accountable to that, right? Like I would do it and I'd get excited because 7 o'clock is just not my time in the morning. 8:15 is, right? So I go to yoga in the morning almost every day. And honestly, I think as an entrepreneur, it's really important that we have that time for ourselves and self-care and self-reflection. And so I do that every day. I do own 4 companies right now in the dental industry. And so I think the biggest thing is really building incredible people around you and elevating them to be leaders and really just seeing the good in people and giving them the tools that they need to thrive, right? So I own a dental practice. I retired after 20 years of clinical, and I have a manager that runs my company as COO of the company. I have multiple associates. And so that practice runs with incredible systems. We are constantly investing in training and education to make our team members the absolute best. And so I feel confident that they're gonna thrive, right? Because I'm giving them the tools to do so. I own a coaching company, right? So we have about 70 practices that we coach, and I have an incredible leadership team that helps me. I do coaching calls every Wednesday, and we also train teams, but we have other coaches that are in there to train on scheduling and insurance and leadership and other things. So it's leverage. I have a marketing agency, which a lot of people don't know about because it's really word of mouth, called DentalFlix. And of course, the newest venture that I have in partnership with Allison Lagoussier is DentalFlix. And so that's education. And again, like a lot of times people think I'm working a lot harder than I am. Sometimes my kids are here, for Thanksgiving or for Christmas break, and the summer they're like, Mom, you don't really work, right? And I think the key, again, is just making a decision of what your schedule is going to look like, and then bringing incredible people around you. It's just like the two of you are together, right? Like either one of you could have done this project, right? But I'm now understanding that we really do need people. And, for me with DentalFlix, like it's so much better. It's going to be so much better because Allison is not working like it was my vision, but she's not working like for the company. Like she's my partner, right? And the same thing, I've got a partner in my dental practice, a dentist, right? And the same thing with my agency, I've got a partner in the agency. And so I think really becoming to the mindset that we shouldn't do it alone, like 1 + 1 is 11, I believe is how we can get so much done, and being willing to put your ego aside. And when you don't know something, go to people and say, you've done this before. Can you help me? Can you share? Right? Because I don't want to make the mistakes. Right. And so that's kind of been my journey. I know it's a long answer to how do I spend my day? But I think it's important to share because I do take self-care. It's very important to me. Family is very important. They are definitely my rocks. So anytime my daughter has a dance show, my son has a squash match, if I've got to fly, my daughter's in college in Vermont, I am always there. My speaking schedule rotates around my kids' schedule. They are the rock. Everything else, my coaching clients, my speaking, like that's the sand, and then the water fills in, right? And my health is also the rock. And so I think that's really important. My parents are aging now, like putting them first. And it wasn't always that way. And so as I've matured and aged and become more experienced, I understand the importance of those things.
Right. Well, I mean, thank you for giving us such an insight into how it seems that you do it all, but it's a very intentional way that you put that together. And I think the one piece that I take away from that as well, when you're saying is having other people help you. And I think that can work on so many levels, whether you don't need to own 4 businesses to have other people to be there to support you, to look at. If you're a one-man band on your own, still having that extra person is going to be the magic. So
yeah, I think I think that's the magic. And a lot of people that are listening to this, it's one dental practice. That was me. I had no idea. I don't even know why or how I'm where I'm at right now, right? I think it's the universe saying, there's more and more and more for you to do, but like same thing. Like, how do you get marketing done in your practice? Like, get somebody to get marketing training and let them do it, or like outsource it, or like you don't have to do all of the things. And I always say, I am not doing all the things, right? I coach my doctors in our coaching program. I'm like, and it's kind of like a funny slang, and now they repeat it back to me. I'm like, you got people for that, right? Like, stop trying to do everything. You got people for that. You have an office manager, right? And guess what? Office managers, you don't have to do everything. You got people for that, right? That's the scheduler. Like, she's going to do her job, or let the hygienist thrive. And, because we have our coaching program, I'm like, you guys want people too. They're like, yeah. I'm like, we're your people, right? So like, so like everybody realizes that, you've got other people that you can lean on. And so that's how you get things done. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I love that. I love I really do believe that we're here on this earth to be and help each other, collaborate, all of that. And that just speaks that the success that comes from that is exponentially greater. And also then you're also allowing others to elevate themselves and use their gifts as well, which is a beautiful thing.
It is.
So Yeah. You know, one thing you said that I love is that, the 7 a.m. yoga class didn't work for you. And, a lot of people might say, well, I guess exercising isn't for me or yoga's not for me. But I love how you figured out how to tell yourself a different story, that, there is a different way to do it. There is a way to fit this in, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it a priority. So I'm interested though in maybe going back in time a little bit and your journey to where you are now. What were maybe some of those pivotal moments that occurred in your life to help you see all of the ways that you do things now more successfully than maybe you did in the past?
Yeah. So I definitely, and it goes back to kind of what I shared in the beginning, is like, because I am a high achiever, like I'm a D on a disc, right? Like I felt like for so many years, nobody can do it like I can do it. Right. And I worked and I worked and I worked and I worked and I worked. And I think as we age and as we evolve, um, hopefully, right, we get to the point where we realize that, wow, we probably made some mistakes, but then forgiveness of why do we do those things, right? So, I mean, I'll tell you, like years ago, I was working my tail off in my dental practice, right? I was working nights and I was working on marketing campaigns and I was working on systems and like all of the things, right? And the reason why is because I wanted to have a good business. I wanted to serve the community, right? I wanted financial security to be able to do things for my kids. Like that was my real why, was my kids, right? And so I worked all the time, and I didn't understand until later, right? But it was like, why did I work all the time? Because I love my kids and I wanted them to have things. And when I was younger, my parents said, I can afford to give you one shirt from the limited, and I wanted to have more than one shirt, right? And so I wanted to be the parent that was able to say yes to my kids, which is why I worked actually, right? But then when you realize that, it's interesting, I've done a lot of work, and I realized that almost everybody I've spoken to, they either have a mama issue or a daddy issue, right? And there's some sort of trauma of somebody not being there, somebody not being present, somebody just not listening or judging you, right? And so as I started to do a lot of work, I realized that like we have a huge role, and if we're going to provide an opportunity for our kids to have this trauma, right? And so, when I went through this season of understanding, it's saying to myself, and sharing with my kids, like I worked all the time. Why? Because I loved you. But they might have said, well, mom doesn't love me because she's always working. Right. And so it's been kind of like my mission, in addition to all of the other things that I'm doing, is really just talking to entrepreneurs. And this is why I'm so passionate about the coaching that I do, because like the coaching that I do with practice owners is to help them understand you've got people for that. You don't have to work like 50 hours a week. You don't. All you have to do is make a decision of what you want. It doesn't mean that you don't, like I've got multiple doctors. I've never done a clear aligner case. I've never done a sleep case, right? Like I don't even know how to use the scanner in my office, and we've got a Trios and an iTero, right? So it doesn't mean that you have to say no. You can say yes, right? But maybe it's bringing in that associate that wants to do something that you don't like to do, right? So now the answer is yes, but it doesn't have to be you, which gives you freedom to now be able to make a decision that, you know what? Yeah, I own the dental practice. I own it. And because I own it, that gives me the ability to make a decision of my hours. And so I'm going to come to work at 9:30 every day because I can, because I own my own company, right? And so it's giving yourself permission and without apologies. Like I tell people, like my clients, people I work, stop apologizing. Like you want what you want because you want it. And if somebody else wants to go to work at 9:30, then they can go to work at 9:30. Like they can find a job, start their own company. Like that ability is there for everyone. Right. And so like, it's okay. Stop apologizing. Like if you want to grow by $1 million this year, if you want to buy a house with a yacht in the backyard, then do it. Right. Like you having success doesn't prevent other people from having success. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just a big thing for me, is just like that awareness that like what we're doing oftentimes it's really harming our aging parents. We're working all the time and we're not spending time with them. You know, we don't want to live with regrets. And so that's why I'm so passionate with the things and the projects that I'm working with, which is all around education. My dad told me, one of the biggest lessons he told me, he said, Anissa, it doesn't matter if you're a woman, right? It doesn't matter if you are a person of color or you're mixed, right? Like the only difference between you and anyone else and what they have and you don't have is they know something you don't know. And when you learn what they know, you can have what they have. And so that's why for me, I have invested in so many coaches because I want to cut checks for speed. I don't want to make the mistakes. I want to learn from mentors, right? That's why I'm so passionate about coaching other doctors to help them to understand, like, if you want to be able to close the case, just say this. Like, team members, do you feel like you're selling? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, great. What are we doing? We're helping people. So just say this, get the result. Like, let me give you the shortcuts, right? And that's why with DentalFlix, like, I'm so freaking excited because the whole company is all based on team members and doctors getting knowledge to free themselves so that they can actually do what they're intended to do, which is to love and spend more time with their kids and better serve their communities without stress and fear and anxiety. And that's really my true purpose. Like I deliver coaching and content, but I think my actual calling is a lot bigger, right? And we do that through education.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's wow. Mic drop. Beautiful moment there. All of that getting to your true purpose, which that I think is such a wonderful thing to bring, especially to dentistry, where a lot of times people do feel isolated, alone, and knowing that they aren't, and that they can learn from somebody, and that they can have what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's important to stop pretending that you are okay or you know everything, or like, you know, like being that kid in the class that never puts their hands up because they don't want to seem like they don't know something. Like that was totally me. That was totally me, right? Because I'm supposed to be the smart one, right? As I've evolved, as I've really understood how this works, right? Like I'm the person that again, I find a mentor. I'm like, can you tell me exactly what I'm doing wrong? Can you like tell me exactly what I need to do? Like, tell me what, just like that. Like, I don't want to do that wrong, right? But at the same time, like having a community around you is so important, right? Whether it's going to be a community of other, you know, a lot of women are in like do Ann Duffy's Dental Entrepreneur Women, or in Vanessa Emerson's group, right? Like those, it's so important. Or like within our coaching community, even like it's a community, it's a family, it's a feeling, right? It's not just the doctors, like the team members are there. Literally when we have our in-person events, like people are literally crying and connecting, and they're like, I thought I was coming here for dental training, but I was really learning how to elevate myself and be a better leader, right? And I'm not alone, right? And so it's so important to find that groove. And it could be in dentistry, it could be, you know, to step out. Like for years, I was like, my friends would be like, hey, you want to go for coffee? And I'm like, I can't go, I gotta work, right? And now I'm just saying yes. You know, I'm saying yes. Like, I don't know if you know Catherine Alderman, super smart dentist. She has a group of practices in Nebraska. She now has a place here in Florida as well. And like a couple of weeks ago, she's like on a random Tuesday afternoon, she's like, hey, can you come over to my place at 1 o'clock? Let's go to the beach. I'm like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like saying yes to your friends, like it's so important. So important.
You know, listening to this, I love how we're talking about, you know, you and your journey in dentistry, but really it's coming down to people and connecting and elevating and everybody living their best selves and their purpose. And that's right. That goes kind of that next mountain, so to speak, beyond just the achievement of dentistry, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Right. Well, having you here today, I almost don't want to waste the opportunity to learn maybe some secrets from you. And the ones that I'm hearing about are secrets on how to be 10 times as happy, 10 times as profitable, and 10 times as much family time when you are within the field of dentistry. So is there anything that you can give away today that would give us an inkling of, and for the listeners of the Mint Door podcast, how they're going to head in the right direction?
Absolutely. So I don't know if you guys have read, if the listeners have read the book 10x is easier than 2x, right? So that book is written by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who's a neuroscientist. I actually had an opportunity through a mastermind to spend a week with him, learning and just immersing in him. And what he said is that 10xing anything is so much easier than 2xing, right? And the reason why is that there's only one or two things that will allow us to 10x. Right. And so he shared a story in the book, and I recommend that everybody get a copy or listen to it, a story of his son. And his son played tennis in high school. And so the coach says, do you think you could play college? And the son says, yeah, of course, it's possible, because he was pretty good. And his dad says, well, do you think you could play pro? Could you go pro? And he goes, Dad, I don't think so. Pro, like, not me, and his dad says, well, I tell you what, if we brought in the coach, and everyone who he trains who's in high school goes pro, do you think that you could go pro? And of course, the son says, yes, right? And so if that was all he did, he could stop doing 80% of the things. He could stop thinking about what college he was going to go to. He could stop perhaps even being in high school. Like maybe he could homeschool. Like there's a lot of things that he could stop. And all he had to do was that one thing, right? And so 10xing is so much easier because there's just a few things you have to do, which means you get to stop doing everything. And so inside of my dental practice, I realized that I 2x my practice multiple times, meaning doubled my profits, right? I kept doing 80% of the things that I was doing, and I started focusing on a few forced accountability tools, which were, for example, whiteboards that I use daily in our huddle to be able to set goals and see if we're hitting them or not, or scorecards. So now we have a global look of what's going on with our accounts receivable, our case acceptance week to week, how many people are leaving without an appointment, right? These are some of the tools that we teach, right? And so we did that multiple times, which means that I was able to 2x my profits. That happened 3 years in a row. And the last year was the 20th year that I practiced clinically, which was the year that I retired. So I told myself if we did it again 3 years in a row, I would give myself permission to retire to full-time teach and speak and coach. And so that's what happened, right? But I realized in my practice, we actually 10x'd. How do we do that? I have 10x more time right now. I have 10x more money. I make more money in my dental practice now than I've ever done, right? How do we do that? We have a manager that runs a company. We have multiple doctors, and we have mastered the systems, right? So if all you do is focus on building the right people, processes, and tools, right? And get the right mentor, anything is possible. Yeah.
That's cool. I love an abbreviation for things, and Laura and I often add abbreviations. So that's PPT, people, processes, and tools.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And the 10X are the M's, right? Mastery of systems, the manager, and multiple doctors.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. I imagine that week spent with him was a little bit like mind-blowing.
Yeah, I think that was part of the stirring up in me of what was coming next. And, what was going to be my 10X impact in the dental industry. Right. And so I've been coaching for many years, and our clients are incredible, and they're growing. Many of them are growing 50, 60% a year, $1 million a year, right? Because we're focusing on these things, right? But I wanted to be able to create more income, more impact, more influence, like the 3 I's, right? And not influence on myself, but how can we build influence, or using even this platform right now, right? This podcast that I'm on. If it wasn't for DentalFlix, I wouldn't be here sharing, and hopefully somebody will get something out of this presentation or this podcast that will change their life, right? Like that to me is influence. We all have that ability to do that. And so he started stirring that up for me. And so that's where kind of the vision came, actually was on that week. that I got the vision for DentalFlix. And I'm like, there's something bigger, right? And so how do I leverage an educational platform, right? I've been building software for 8 years to deliver education in my own coaching program, right? I've been selfish. I've been keeping it to myself, right? But like, how do we use that? How do we leverage the fact that that I am a speaker, right? That I'm a coach. So how can I help the coaches? How can I help the speakers? I own a dental practice. Like, we focus on education, right? So it's like, oh my gosh, unlimited access to training, education for dentists and their teams. How can I help them, right? Where everybody can afford it, and unlimited CE, right? And I'm like, how can I help the speakers, coaches, and consultants so that more people know who they are, so that they can learn from them and get the shortcuts to grow faster, right? And so it was like, oh my God, this is so much more impact, not just working with my doctors in my coaching program, but working to help speakers to be able to become known, right? And help them to understand how to develop their own courses and like all of the things, right? Like, that's huge. And then also being able to help companies as well to get exposure, right? And so that's a much bigger assignment, and probably the hardest thing that I've ever done. But I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to put just a bookmark there, because I do want to talk more about DentalFlix and what it is. But one thing that I notice about you is that you have an intense power of focus. You're focused on what your vision is. And I know that in the world today, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of distractions. And definitely in the dental world, dentists are concerned about profitability. So how can a dental team, a dental office, a dentist really use the power of focus to increase profitability?
Yeah. And that is definitely what I talk about, right? So I spoke at Dental Economics. I wrote an article actually on increasing profits and using your practice and turning it into a passive income source. But I'll tell you, profitability, it's really not hard at all to make money. People think it's hard. It's not, right? You just have to see. It's like you're going through security. You're going through immigration when you enter the US, right? And because I've got a free app on my phone, right? Which is not like global entry, which you have to pay for, but like mobile passport, that's free, that I downloaded, I can get through in 2 minutes. And some people are in there for 2 hours, right? It's not lack of opportunities, lack of knowledge. And so I always say it's really, really, really simple, right? And so one of the things that I teach is, and I speak on, is just a simple process of like, even if you look at like a sealant, right? And when I was in dental school, Dr. Filler at UAB did sealants on me my first year of dental school. And he's like, oh, there's something we can prevent a cavity. Would you like to learn more? And I was like, yeah, right. He's a sealant. So he basically says like, I'm like, well, I don't want a cavity. I don't want a filling. I know how that works. That turns into a crown and a root canal, right? So for years, I didn't talk to my patients about sealants, although I was always getting them, right? Because I was telling myself a story. Well, insurance doesn't cover it, right? And so all of a sudden, one of my first coaches in my practice was like, again, on a whiteboard, why are you only doing 5? I'm like, oh, insurance doesn't cover it. Well, that was my belief, right? And so as I started to learn verbal skills and understand, I was able to say things like, well, there's something we can do to prevent a cavity. Would you like to learn more? Yeah, insurance doesn't cover it. Here's why our patients choose to do it anyway. It doesn't take time. It's a fraction of the cost of a filling, and it'll give you that peace of mind while you're already here. So you don't have to come back. We can go ahead and get that done today. Should we go ahead and do those sealants, right? And so when I'm teaching, for example, this framework, team members, I'm like, do you feel like I was selling anything? I'm okay if you say yes. And they say no. I said, well, what do you feel? I feel like you're just educating. You're just giving people an option. I said, absolutely. Right. But there's a lot of psychology. There's a lot of strategy around that framework. It's very intentional. Right. And so now if you wind up having 4 sealants, 1 patient a day, 1 to do 4 sealants, and you're working 16 days, that's $2,500 a month, right? Now, our coaching program is $2,500 a month, right? A payment to a scanner, might be $2,500 a month. Or maybe you take that money and you put it into, at the end of the year, you buy something cash, right? Maybe you take a course, a clinical course, right? So when people are like, oh, well, I can't afford to go, you join your coaching program, I'm like, just go do some sealants, right? Like and it's a mindset thing, right? And if you don't believe in sealants, you should not be doing sealants. Some people don't believe in them, but I do. Like my dental school professor, and for years I did them, right? So like, stop robbing people of an opportunity. That's just an example, right? So the same thing, like, again, verbal skills. So there's something that we can do to prevent that food from catching. Well, maybe that's clear aligners. There's something we can do to prevent snoring, right? So now, instead of it being a sealant, now it's like you're able to do like 4-6 cases that are like $5,000 a piece, right? So it's literally that. It's having, for example, whiteboard in your morning huddle where you can look at it and say, okay, well, our goal is going to be 8, right? Why 8? Because, well, last month we did 6, and the month before we did 7. So 8's probably possible. It's just 1 ahead. And then I tell the teams, well, does it matter if we do 8? Does it really matter? Right? Like, and the answer is, I think the answer is yes, right? Because when we open up our mouth and we have the force accountability tool, just like our mom standing over our shoulder when we're little and saying, brush your teeth, 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 put on your seatbelt. Like, they have to stand over us. Why? It's forced accountability. And that forced accountability now, as an adult, we don't think about it, right? It became a habit. And so using tools like a whiteboard that holds us accountable to have the conversation, start to realize we're never going to do 8. We just put that goal up there. We just started doing clear aligners, but we don't have the clinical competency. We're doing the easy cases. So now it identifies that we need to go and take a course so that now we can have clinical competency, or our team needs clinical competency, maybe on taking photographs, right? Or doing the scans. That comes first after clinical competency. And if you're like, no, I'm actually good there, then it's communication, learning those frameworks, learning the psychology of, do you want me to help you? And the answer is yes. Third is cash. That's the third C, cash competency, right? Do you have a way? You already know people say they can't afford it. You already know that. You should be prepared of what to say next, right? So it's that, but it's also a step further. Another tool that we teach in the circle of focus is looking strategically at the last 12 months and saying, okay, well, what month was the best month? Oh, it was October. Why? Oh, we did 4 more ortho cases that month. Oh, than any other month. But we only did 5. And the other months we did 0. And then we did with 1, we did 2. What if we just focused for the next quarter? Are you clinically competent? I am. Great. Let's just focus on that for the next quarter. Let's make sure we actually do the 4 cases. What does that mean? We are marketing around it. We're putting it on a whiteboard to make sure we're having conversations. We're doing verbal skills training. Like, we're all in, right? If we do that and we do only 4, guess what? It's another $250,000 at the end of year. And what can we do now for next quarter that we need to get some training on? Maybe the doctor says, you know what, I like to actually start placing some implants, or I want to go learn how to do sleep, right? Or maybe you're bringing in Perio Protect or laser for your hygiene department. What do you need to learn this quarter so that next quarter you have a second focus that can stack? And so when we start doing this, all of a sudden is super strategic, right? And now we move those goals, the quantities of the revenue, onto the whiteboard. And so now the team is not looking at, oh, we got to do $10,000 today. They actually have a roadmap, right? Like, we're just going to do X amount of crowns. And if we hit that, we're good, right? And so it's very, as you said, very focused, very strategic. And the team understands. Like, one of the things that I focus on when I work with doctors is not only helping them to put in these forced accountability tools, right? But how do we actually empower the teams for that? And that's something that's very difficult for many doctors. They don't understand how to build that rapport, connection. Like, how do you get people to actually do the thing? I'm paying them more money and they're just not doing the thing, right? And so we have to understand, why are people, like, we're all the same. What does your team want? They want to do more for their kids. They want to buy a better home. They want a better car that's more reliable. They want to take a vacation just like you taking one. They should. We're all people. We all deserve that, right? And so I go to teams, I'm like, guys, like, we don't get what we want just because we say it. We got to get better. So if we know that our verbal skills are not good, we got to get better. If we know that people are leaving out, we've got to get better. If our clinical is not good, we've got to get better. And if we're not having conversations, we've got to use the tool to hold us accountable. Does that make sense? And when we do the 6 cases that we said we're going to do instead of 2, because we're not looking at it, we're not holding ourselves accountable, we're not having conversations, right? Then what happens is that if we do the 4 times $5,000, well, obviously there's a lab bill. Well, maybe there's an extra $15,000 a month over a quarter. That's $45K. And I tell doctors, if your team can help you grow by $500,000 this year, will you share it with them? The answer is always yes. I'm like, great. So let's just do that at the end of the quarter, because that's profit. That's what the company actually makes after everything's paid. Well, now we got just from one procedure, $45,000 that now you can give your team 5%, 10%, 15%. Right. And now they can invest in what they want to invest in. And you can take the money and you can invest in things like real estate or other things that investment is going to make money for you. And so now you wind up creating what I call money babies, right? So your money is pregnant and it's making money. It's making money, right? It's not you making money with your hands, but it all starts with the source of your dental practice. So yeah, that's a lot of the stuff that I help practice with in our coaching program, which is so beautiful. And I'm so grateful to all the doctors that give us an opportunity to work with them and train their teams. Yeah, we've got about like 70 or 80 practices that we work with right now. But it's quite beautiful. So hopefully that answered your question.
Oh, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing all that. And I would just say that was the most valuable nugget that we could have shared right there. So I know that, I mean, as a former practicing dentist, if I were listening to this podcast, I'd be like, how do I get a hold of her? How do I sign up? What do we got to do? I'm there. I'm ready to make some money babies.
Yeah, make it pregnant.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that insight into your coaching world. And now that you did that, I'm going to take that bookmark out and let's talk about DentalFlix. Like, just give us, for somebody that's listening that hasn't heard of DentalFlix yet, what is it? What could they expect if they looked into DentalFlix? And just give us a little background into it.
Yeah, so DentalFlix is an online streaming educational platform. Think Masterclass, think Hulu, Netflix, right? Like the platforms where you can go and you can have a host of opportunities to learn, right? And in DentalFlix, there's different categories, right? So there's clinical, there's front desk and scheduling, there's case acceptance, there's leadership, right? There's financials. So all the different categories, marketing, right? And so now you can come in with your team and you can learn. But what I think makes it really different and what sets it apart are 2 things. Number one is that the CE is unlimited, right? There's no come in and pay one price and you have to pay extra for an upsell to be able to get a premium course. Everything's included, which we want to make things simple. The other thing that is different and unique is that the training is based on data and analytics. What does that mean? Again, as I've spoke about before, everything can be very strategic about what you need to do to be able to get an output. That's how my mind thinks. I'm a strategist, right? Which is pretty cool because Allison is a creator, right? So like we're a perfect match, right? A partnership. But I'm a strategist. And so I'm like, okay, so we can give assessments, surveys to the team. And based on what they feel is not working, all of a sudden we can deliver training based on what they feel is not working, right? And so it's not just, let me just go watch a bunch of videos, right? And then on the data side, so that's emotion. And then on logic side, actually having scorecards. So this is one of the things that we pulled out of one of the tools that we teach in our coaching program. We actually built it within DentalFlix. And so this allows team members to be able to put in on a weekly basis what's going on with their production, collection, hygiene reappointment percentage, your AR over 30, how many people left last week without a future appointment, like all of these different numbers. And so on a weekly basis, again, just like the whiteboard, now there's forced accountability to be able to see what's going on within the practice, which is huge. And then now if you're hitting the goal for 3 weeks in a row, what do? We increase it, right? For that particular metric. And if we don't, then now DentalFlix can recommend training for you to watch to be able to improve that analytic. And so we're really excited about DentalFlix. It's very affordable. Like we've got a, can get in there and get started for free. So we have a trial at the beginning that's free. And then the single user is $99 a month. Right. And so it's very affordable. We have different options based on the number of team members that you have, but everybody can fit it into their budget. And that to me is, again, this level of where I'm at in my life is about impact. Right. And so being able to make education accessible to everyone. I've had doctors reach out to me and they're in a small village in Africa or in Mexico. And they say, I want to learn from you, but I can't afford, I really can't afford $2,500 a month. Right. Our fees are just completely different. Can you help me? Right. And in the past, it's been, come to our free boot camps, which we do a couple times a year, our business boot camps, which are incredible. Right. But now we have another way, which is really powerful. And then at the same time, we're there to serve the coaches, consultants, and speakers. And so many speakers, they have incredible things that they're teaching, but after they come off of the stage, all of a sudden the learning stops. And for me, it's not about awareness. It's about implementation and mastery of a topic. And if you just hear that speaker one time, it's very difficult to get to mastery. And so the thought process is that the speakers can come in and we can provide a way for them to be able to record. And so now doctors and teams can listen to it multiple times and actually get to mastery. And many of the speakers, they have coaching programs, right? They have ways that they can literally hold your hand and help you with implementation, right? And so now you can go in, you can say, I really like this person, what they have to say. And it's not just about like practice management. It could be, we have speakers that are coming in that are helping with wellness and mindset and mental health and right. And so saying, I really resonate with this person. Like I'm going to reach out to them and I want to work with them one-on-one. And so honestly, in all transparency, I want that to happen because the implementation is how people actually get the result. I truly believe that we don't learn how to ride a bicycle, right? By going to a seminar, right? Like you've got to get on it. And I don't think you learn how to run your business by going to a 1-hour lecture, right? It does take time and learning and focusing on implementation. And so DentalFlix is there to give a ton of incredible knowledge and be able to also help speakers to be able to help people at a much deeper level than they've ever been able to do before. And so that's DentalFlix. Yeah.
It's so cool. And, I have had a little tour of the platform and it is very masterclass, very, very well done. And I'm excited. There are so many courses and speakers that I want to listen to. So kudos to you. And I think that you bring up a really good point there about the fact that it's on video and that a team can watch it, they can pause it, they can discuss it, they can go back and listen to it again. Or how often does a dentist maybe go to a CE without his team, without his or her team, and come back and share information, but maybe not to the degree that they received it because they were there live. So just all those little touch points that I think are so beautiful that DentalFlix really provides for dental teams to increase their learning and implementation. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that like I was having dinner a couple of weeks ago with the executive director of the ADA, Ray, and we're talking about that and talking to also meeting planners. I've been in a few conferences with some major meeting planners and, they're trying to figure out like what's going on with conferences, what's going on with attendees and like all the things. I truly believe that there is a need for in-person meetings. You cannot feel the composite, and you cannot try on the loops without being in person. And we need that connection. But the challenge, we've always heard this, right? Like Joy goes to the meeting, but Susie doesn't, and the doctor's not there. So like nothing gets implemented. And so I think the beauty of, where we are now post-COVID is actually not seeing it as like an either or. It's like, I believe it's an and. Mm-hmm. And so being able to, go to meetings and having speakers also become open-minded about having their content available and recorded, because in the past, there's been this hoard or protection of like their ideas, right? But I truly believe, and I have most of the doctors that have come into my coaching have come from me doing free education through our online business boot camps, which are 6 or 8 hours completely, like literally teaching like everything. But again, after the 3 days, I'm gone. Right. And so they have an opportunity now to say, you know what, I don't want you to be gone. Like, can you just stay with me? Right. And so also just, again, having the meetings really understand the power of both, of the and, right. And so a lot of them are open-minded, and we're having these conversations, which is really cool. And the beauty of it as well is saying, I want to invite you in and to come in and scout speakers, right, that are in DentalFlix, so that now they can come and speak on your in-person. So again, like, how do we collaborate with meeting planners as well? Is pretty exciting, the conversations that we're having.
That's just explosive possibilities, right?
Yeah.
That's
You just
awesome.
have to imagine it.
Yeah, right? Why not? Or, let's do it. All right. So thank you for sharing that. I can't wait we'll make sure that everyone has the contact information for DentalFlix. It's just dentalflix.com. And so super simple. But before we let you go today, I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
Where you are now, looking back at younger Dr. Anissa, what would you tell her?
Yeah, I would say do it faster, do it quicker. Right. And I've been asked this question before, and it came from a D4 dental student at UCLA that said, what would you tell yourself a year out of school? And I would say, do it quicker. Do it quicker. Take that course quicker, right? Whether it's going to be, if you want to learn how to place implants, do it now. Like if you want to take whatever CE, learn how to run your business faster, get a coach faster, do it faster. Like the quicker you do it, the longer, more years in life you can enjoy the results, right? Imagine, again, if you had to implement it sleep, we got people that are in our coaching program that have followed me for years, right? And finally they decided, you know what? All right, I'm going to go all in. And the first quarter, one of the doctors added an extra 700,000, right, to her revenue, to her production. And it was like, oh my gosh, how much did it cost me? Right? Like, what if I had done this 3 years ago? Right? Like, it's cost me millions of dollars potentially, right, for waiting. And so the biggest lesson is just do it now. Like W. Clement Stone, who was BFFs with Napoleon Hill, they co-founded Success Magazine, and 100 times a day, he became a self-made billionaire. 100 times a day, he said, do it now, right? Do it now, do it now, do it now, do it now, do it now. So if there's somebody that you're being inspired by, whether it's a mentor, somebody that knows something, reach out to them, right? And say, you know what, help me. Like, put your ego aside and let them help you, right? Like, join DentalFlix. If it's not DentalFlix, join somewhere that can give you that knowledge, right? But yeah, that would be my biggest advice is just to do it faster, do it quicker, to enjoy it longer. Yeah.
That's awesome. Imagine where you'd be had baby Dr. Holmes taken that advice way back when. Like, not that you aren't doing it faster now.
No,
way back then, right?
I waited 13 years before I got my first coach. I didn't even know it existed, right? Like, and that year we tripled revenue. Like, all of this stuff happened, right? And because of that, she's like, what's your calling gonna be? I'm like, what? What's your legacy? I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'll write a book, right? I had no idea I'd be where I am now. Then I wrote the book, and then I started the podcast. And then one thing, none of that would have happened but what if I had done that 1 year out? So yeah.
That's fun to hear. And I look forward to all of the proteges that are following you, that are taking that advice. And what a beautiful world it's going to be.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time, your knowledge, and I think we learned a lot today. So I appreciate you sharing all of your journey with us. Everyone, check out DentalFlix. Anything else you'd love to share with us before we sign off today, Anissa?
Honestly, I just want to thank you both, right? Like, I know that a podcast is not easy, and it's a labor of love, and it's personal time oftentimes that you're giving up to be able to hear people's stories, to be able to share. And so I just want to honor you and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you. We'll receive that. We appreciate that. We love it. So thank you. And everyone, I hope that you found some encouragement from today. Know that we adore you, our listeners, and we'll be back for the next episode of the Mint Door Podcast. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.